At the start of 1519, the Aztec Empire was a dominant force in Mesoamerica. Although commonly seen as one people, the Aztec Empire actually began in 1428 as an alliance between the three city-states of Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan. Among these, Tenochtitlan would soon rise above the others, gaining infamy in the eyes of their tributaries. Those unfortunate enough to fall under its yoke were forced to supply the Triple Alliance not only with raw materials, but also with a steady flow of prisoners for human sacrifice. Although it is not entirely clear how many people were sacrificed in total, it is believed that in times of drought, thousands of human lives would be ritually killed over a matter of days. Aztec warriors also embarked on what was known as flower wars to capture prisoners for sacrifice, and some members of the Aztec aristocracy even cannibalized the bodies of some of the victims. Having said that, life in Tenochtitlan entailed more than just an endless stream of gruesome offerings and peculiar appetites. The Mexica, as the city's inhabitants were called, greatly valued scholarship, and Tenochtitlan contained several large libraries with manuscripts on a wide range of topics ranging from religion and genealogies to government and geography. The fateful event that would radically alter the course of Mesoamerican history came in February 1519, when a group of several hundred conquistadors landed in the Gulf of Mexico in search of glorious cities rumored to be filled with gold. Its leader, Hernan Cortes, was following in the footsteps, or rather the sails of, two prior expeditions which had ventured into the Gulf before him. But unlike his predecessors, Cortes' expedition was rife with controversy from the very start. After having butted heads with the Cuban governor, Diego Velázquez, Cortes had his expeditionary charter revoked at the last moment. Not one to take no for an answer, Cortes decided to ignore the order and, in an open act of mutiny, set sail for Mesoamerica. Facing certain imprisonment or even death, Cortes was highly aware of the absolute necessity of his expedition's success. Luckily for him, help in this regard would soon arrive in unexpected form. Once a novelty adorning the wrists of the rich and royalty, thanks to modern conflicts like the First World War, wristwatches soon transitioned into vital instruments of war, with soldiers relying on them to synchronize critical operations, shifting the wristwatch's status from ornamental to indispensable. Today, wristwatches don't just help manage time, but they also remind us to take time for ourselves whenever needed. Holzcairn, the sponsor of today's video, continues this legacy by merging timeless elegance with modern ingenuity and natural materials. Their high-quality watches, jewelry, and accessories are the perfect gift for any occasion or style. I've had my Holzcairn watch for several months, and I wear it regularly during my on-screen scenes. I also really enjoy these amazing handcrafted sunglasses that I just received. All pieces are guaranteed for 24 months, and ordering online is easy with free duty and import tax-free shipping to the US and most EU countries within 2 to 5 days. Followers who use our special discount code ARMCHAIR15 at checkout will receive 15% off of all products. Support our channel by clicking the link and choose your own personal piece of nature for everyday life with Holzcairn. On their way to their first stop in the Yucatan Peninsula, the conquistadors happened upon a shipwrecked Spaniard by the name of Jerónimo de Aguilar. Aguilar, who had learned to speak Mayan, was promptly brought aboard as Cortes' personal translator. A few weeks later, Aguilar would prove his usefulness during peace talks with the Potonchan, a Mayan city-state that the conquistadors had encountered a few weeks into their expedition. As a peace offer, the Mayans provided Cortes with 20 slaves, among whom a woman who spoke both Mayan as well as the Aztec language, Nahuatl. Together, Aguilar and the slave woman, who would become known as La Malinche, would form a crucial link for Cortes to communicate with the Aztec people. Armed with the power of language, as well as of steel and gunpowder, the Spaniards set sail for their final destination. Upon arrival, the nifty Cortes declared the establishment of Villarica de la Veracruz, marking the first Spanish colony in Mesoamerica. However, in reality, Veracruz was not much more than a name on a map, and primarily served as a means for Cortes to take advantage of Spanish law in an attempt to escape the jurisdiction of Governor Velázquez. Cortes' arrival, in the meantime, had not gone unnoticed, and his party was soon welcomed by representatives of the Aztec Emperor Moctezuma. Despite their seeming lack of hostility, Cortes knew that these formalities were unlikely to last, and he was all too aware of the pressing need to address his glaring numerical inferiority. Fortunately for the Spaniards, years of often brutal Aztec rule had left few friends among their tributaries, and many, like the Totonac Confederacy, were relatively easily persuaded to turn against their hated overlords. Upon hearing of the news of the Spanish-Totonac alliance, Moctezuma sensed trouble, and sent forth another score of polite ambassadors bearing gifts of gold and cloth, in a doomed attempt to appease the Spaniards, and perhaps to keep an eye on their movements, but most of all, to dissuade them from visiting Tenochtitlan. Cortes, however, felt encouraged rather than dissuaded by the lavish gifts of gold, and ordered a daring march toward the city. It was all or nothing for the Spanish leader, and to ensure the loyalty of his own men, he made sure to scuttle his ships before setting off. Violence erupted when Tlaxcalan warriors began harrying the column as it passed through Tlaxcaltecan territory 2 weeks later. The bloodshed spread into September as the Spanish camp was attacked by day, while Cortes' men raided Tlaxcalteca villages by night. After 18 days of brutal warfare, which had come at the cost of half of the Spanish cavalry and a fifth of Cortes' men, peace finally returned to the territory. Cortes had convinced the harassers that they had a common enemy in the Aztecs. The Tlaxcalans had reason to resent the empire, as it had conquered most of their territory during their yearly flower wars, which had been going on for nearly a century. Seeing a golden opportunity for retribution, the Tlaxcalans lowered their arms and joined the march to the city. That being said, the violence did not stop there. Before the Spanish went to Tenochtitlan, they marched alongside their Tlaxcalteca allies on the city of Cholula and massacred its civilian population over the course of several days. Cholula, an important religious center, had formerly been part of the Tlaxcalan sphere of influence before switching sides and allying with the Aztecs. The exact reasons for the massacre are disputed, but it may have been a mixture of the Tlaxcalans wanting to get rid of a political rival and the Spanish wanting to send a message to rival cities. While it is clear that many city-states had a grudge with the Aztecs, at Cholula, the Spanish clearly demonstrated what would happen if cities didn't ally with them. By the first week of November, the surviving conquistadors finally laid eyes on Tenochtitlan. Home to over 300,000 inhabitants, this massive city dwarfed almost all of its contemporary European counterparts. The vista of its many canals, densely populated neighborhoods, and imposing temples and palaces struck the approaching Spaniards with awe, and prompted some to wonder whether they were in a dream. Having failed to dissuade him from visiting the city, Moctezuma now felt obliged to invite Cortes into his palace. It was here that the conquistadors discovered a secret room where the emperor kept his treasure. The sight of numerous golden objects, jewels, plates, and ingots dumbfounded the Spaniards. Having located the rumored treasure trove, Cortes began to pressure Moctezuma by asking him to allow his men to erect a cross and an image of the Virgin Mary next to two large Aztec idols. Naturally, this provocative request was cause for considerable consternation among the Mexicas, causing an eruption of violence that cost the lives of 7 Spaniards. Realizing the precarity of their situation, Cortes retaliated by putting Moctezuma under house arrest in the palace, assuming personal control over the city. With the emperor essentially taken hostage, the Spaniards hoped to dissuade the Aztecs from further resistance. Montezuma, on his part, continued to stand firm behind his policy of diplomacy and peace. After firmly refusing advice from his chieftains to attack the conquistadors, he finally allowed Cortes' men to build a Catholic altar on the temple. It was the first real sign that the once mighty emperor of the great Aztec Empire had been reduced to little more than a puppet of Cortes. Meanwhile, off to the east, another significant development was taking place. While Cortes executed his coup d'etat, 900 conquistadors under the command of Panfilo de Narvaez were landing on the orders of Governor Velázquez. Their objective: to deal with Cortes. Hearing of the news, Cortes assembled his best men and set off to face Narvaez in battle, leaving Pedro de Alvarado and a small garrison in charge of the city. This would turn out to be a fateful decision, as the cruel and easily angered Alvarado had little patience and even less respect for the Aztec people. And when on May 22nd, 1520, Montezuma asked for permission to celebrate an Aztec festival, which included human sacrifice, Alvarado and his men interrupted the festivities, killing nearly all of the mostly unarmed warriors and noblemen inside of the Great Temple. Check out our library of over 100 exclusive videos on Armchair History TV. New videos come out every week, and we create Armchair Historian originals every single month. Alvarado's men claimed to have merely acted to prevent human sacrifice, while survivors retorted that the Spaniards had grown wild at the sight of gold jewelry that those in attendance were wearing. Hearing of the massacre, Montezuma again urged for cooler heads to prevail and ordered his people to stand down. The Aztecs, however, had had enough and rose up in revolt. Due east, Cortes had managed to sneak up on Narvaez at Zempoala and ordered his men to attack at nightfall. His mixed group of 250 Spaniards and 200 natives soundly defeated Narvaez's numerically superior force, which included horsemen and artillery. In an ultimate slap to the face to Governor Velázquez, the survivors were then convinced to join Cortes with promises of boundless Aztec riches. Arriving back at Tenochtitlan, Cortes found Alvarado's men under siege in the palace. Acting quickly, Cortes ordered Montezuma to address his people in a final doomed attempt to restore peace and allow the Spaniards to peacefully withdraw from the city. However, this desperate gesture merely stoked the pyres of fury. Jeers rose from the crowd as Montezuma faced a rain of stones and darts. His people had had enough of their emperor and had in fact already chosen to elect his successor, Cuitlahuac. The tragic Montezuma would not survive the assault, though the Aztecs would later claim that he was killed by the Spaniards after his usefulness to them had expired. With their bargaining chip gone, and with supplies rapidly dwindling, Cortes realized that time was running out. He ordered his men to break out at night with as much gold and other treasure as they could carry. The party headed west under the cover of a welcome rainstorm, winding their way through the sleeping city. However, before long, they were spotted, and the alarm was sounded. Within no time, a crowd of Aztecs emerged from their houses to attack the fleeing column, while hundreds of men in canoes harassed Cortes' men as they fought their way across the causeway leading out of the city. Some soldiers lost their footing and drowned in the lake, weighed down by all their equipment and the treasure that they had so desired. Cortes himself was well ahead of the group, leading a vanguard of horsemen, leaving the rest of his men behind to fend for themselves. Upon reaching safety at the village of Tacuba, the Spanish leader had a change of heart and turned around to come to the aid of those still fighting their way out. Along the way, he found a badly wounded Alvarado with a group of Spaniards and Tlaxcaltecs. According to Conquistador Diaz del Castillo, it was at this point that Cortes broke down in tears. During the bloody breakout attempt, an estimated 400 to 800 Spaniards had been killed, drowned, or captured, while around 1,000 Tlaxcaltecs had suffered the same fate. In terms of equipment, all of the artillery and most of the horses had been lost, and the exhausted and mostly wounded survivors were left to make do with whatever they had managed to carry along. Cortes' alleged sorrow at the site of this tragedy solidified it in Spanish and Mexican history as the Night of Sorrows. Despite their apparent weakness, Cortes' men were far from defeated. About a week later, the Aztecs struck again at Otumba in an attempt to deliver the killing blow. But their victory during the Night of Sorrows had made the Aztecs overconfident, and the Spaniards' skillful use of cavalry and targeting known leaders ultimately sent their army into disarray. Having fought off his pursuers, Cortes withdrew his remaining men to the relative safety of Tlaxcala to rest and reorganize. Though defeated on the field of battle, the Aztecs had retaken control over their capital. This victory, however, would be short-lived, as soon a far more lethal and insidious enemy would arrive in the form of smallpox. Having no prior contact with this disease, the vulnerable Aztecs were at its mercy. Thousands perished in short succession, among them the new emperor Cuitlahuac, and by the end of the year 1520, it is estimated that the disease had killed some 8 million people in the area now known as Mexico. Having licked their wounds from the Night of Sorrows and the Battle of Otumba, Cortes' men were reinforced by more native allies from Texcoco and once again set off for Tenochtitlan in early 1521. Well aware of the weakened state of the Aztec Empire, the Spanish leaders undoubtedly expected a swift victory. However, to their surprise, the stubborn defenders of the city refused to yield. Frustrated, the Spaniards ordered Tlaxcalteca laborers to construct cannon-mounted brigantines to take control of the lake. Potable water to the city was cut off on May 10th, yet by the end of June, its defenders still stood firm. Various attempts to end the siege through diplomacy failed. Having run out of patience, Cortes ordered a massive assault on the city to take the market of Tlatelolco, but his men were forced to retreat in the face of heavy resistance. Cortes himself was captured during the fighting, and was fortunate to escape with his life when his men came to the rescue. Brutal urban combat and sustained fanatical resistance persisted until the remaining defenders made their last stand at Plaza Mayor, where they finally surrendered on August 13th. The reign of Cuauhtémoc, the last Aztec emperor, ended when he was captured trying to flee the city in a canoe. But the catastrophe that had befallen Tenochtitlan would not end there. The victorious Spaniards and their native allies mercilessly sacked the city in search of gold and revenge. Cortes, on his part, would be rewarded for the astounding success of his valiant expedition by the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V by being named Captain General of the Viceroyalty of New Spain in October of 1522. Cortes' lethal gamble had paid off. The mutinous soldier had become the new hero of Spain. Within just 2 short years, Hernan Cortes' relatively small group of conquistadors had managed to vanquish an empire. The scale of the Aztec expedition, alongside its capture in treasure, would not be matched until the 1532 conquest of the Incan Empire in modern-day Peru. However, as we've seen, Cortes' conquest was far from a straightforward military affair. Besides the Spaniards' technological and tactical superiority, it was the vital support of large numbers of native allies, the overcaution and inaction of Montezuma, as well as the brutal effects of the smallpox epidemic, that all played a part in the rapid toppling of the Aztec Empire. Its fall marked the start of further Spanish conquests in the region, ultimately leading to the Spanish control over the entirety of Mesoamerica. Conquest, in turn, was followed by the mass conversion of the indigenous people to Catholicism. And before long, intermarriage between ethnic Spaniards and natives would become common occurrences, marking the beginning of the modern Mexican nation. Special thanks to Hulscairn for sponsoring this video. Support our channel by visiting the link in the description below and use our special discount code ARMCHAIR15 at checkout to receive 15% off on all products.